Good morning, everyone. My name is Annie Fink, and I am the Marketing Coordinator for Windoware, California. Thank you for attending our Learn in 30 webinar today, focused on visualizing data in the cloud with AVEVA Insight. After the webinar this morning, we will be doing a short Q&A. Please type any questions or comments into the Q&A box, the chat box, or you can email us at webinar@california.windoware.com. Now I'd like to introduce your presenter for today's webinar, Tim Brost. Tim is an automation industry expert and has been a Windoware, California product specialist for a year and a half. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning, Annie. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you to everybody else for attending this webinar this morning on AVEVA Insight. So what is AVEVA Insight? In short, AVEVA Insight is a secure, managed cloud historian, and it's hosted in Microsoft Azure data centers. And because it's hosted in those data centers, AVEVA Insight lowers your IT and maintenance costs versus any on-premise solution. AVEVA Insight allows you to share data securely and easily with anyone using the following client tools, which can be a browser client, a free native mobile app, Excel 365, or I can integrate AVEVA Insight using a RESTful API and a BA gateway to other third-party data sources and intelligence software such as Tableau and Microsoft Power BI. The supported data sources for AVEVA Insight include the AVEVA product line, OPC data sources, and JSON and CSV files. So one of the architectures for AVEVA Insight can be you have a control network with one of the following data sources and separated from the business network via a DMZ zone. And on that DMZ would exist a computer with the DMZ Secure Link software, which is free to download at online.windoware.com. And what this software does is not only whitelist accessible web pages that are only allowed to access AVEVA Insight, but also securely and encrypts the data via TLS 1.2 certificate-based encryption and pushes the data out into the internet via an outbound-only port 443. So with AVEVA Insight, you can build business KPIs and dashboards with different types of charts and grids, as well as access the data on a mobile phone using the native AVEVA Insight mobile app. With the Excel add-in with AVEVA Insight, allows you to pull either raw or aggregate data into Excel 365, and you can utilize that data traditionally and however you would normally use Excel. One of the other few new features with AVEVA Insight is condition management. And with condition management, AVEVA Insight now allows the user to configure multi-condition alerts and even integrate that alert with an Azure Logic app to trigger a related work order, for example. The Insight Performance module is a collection of tools that allows the user to monitor and analyze manufacturing performance. Some of these tools include analyzing utilization events with associated downtime KPIs, the OEE of an asset, and production events, which generate good and waste production KPIs, as well as track the progress of that current production run. A new Predictive Analytics module is now available with AVEVA Insight that allows you to build, analyze, and visualize supervised machine learning models within AVEVA Insight. So with that, let's get started on how you get set up with AVEVA Insight. So you first go to online.windoware.com and sign up for an account. You'd use your credentials by creating an email address as your username, a password, and confirm that password, and set your first and last name to be associated with this email address. You click through the terms and conditions, read through, and click accept, and click register. Now I already have an account created with this email address, but you'd receive an email, and from there you'd log in with your newly created account using those following credentials, sign in, and you'd be prompted to create a data source or solution name. From here, I've created one called Webinar AVEVA Insight. From now, we'll pull in data from our existing data sources, in this case, the AVEVA historian, by going into the SMC, expanding Configuration Editor, System Configuration, Replication, and Replication Servers. I'll right-click for New Replication Server and give a logical name. In this case, AVEVA Insight. Click the checkbox, Replicate to AVEVA Insight, and click Register. From there, I'm going to click the region that I'm in and sign in with my existing account. And click Sign In. And from there, I'll choose the solution I want this data to be a part of. In this case, my webinar AVEVA Insight solution, and give the data sources a name. In this case, SPOMI. Now here's a logical location that I can give to my data source. In this case, I'm going to pick Irvine. And I can also give geolocation coordinates for that data source as well. We'll cover that in a little bit later. So I'll finish publishing to this data source. And once I've established that connection, I can click Next and Finish. And now I've established that replication server. So now to add tags, I expand and click on Simple Replication and right-click and click on Add Multiple Tags. I'll search for the desired tags that I'd like, and I'll add them by selecting a group of them and clicking on the right arrow to bring them over to the Target Tags pane. So I'll go ahead and add a total of the 12 tags that I want to add for this demo, and click the right arrow. And once I've added those 12, I'll click OK, and click Apply, and make sure that the status of all those tags is passed, and click Close. Now to commit any changes or to, with the historian, I'll right-click and click Commit Pending Changes and click Commit. So now we have data being pushed up to AVEVA Insight. So from there, we can go back into our Chrome browser and go ahead and log into online.wonderware.com. We'll go ahead and sign in using our newly created credentials. And we'll land on the AVEVA Insight homepage once we select our newly created solution. So in the homepage, in the suggested content is recently saved content. We have a dashboard tab for saved dashboards, as well as a news feed, which learns your data after about a week and relays unusual or interesting events about that data in tiles over on the right-hand side. You have your content, alarms or alerts. You have the help, as well as you have an insight suite, which allows you to do all your administrative tools or actions. The hamburger icon on the left-hand side has different pieces of tabs, such as your asset page, home page, alerts, equipment efficiency, and OEE analysis. So in the search bar, I'm going to search for SPOMI, which are a data source. But in reality, I don't have to, if I don't know my data source name, I can search for any metadata that's associated with my tags, and it'll bring up those tags related. So a user that may not be familiar with those tags can easily search and find the desired tags that they want to view. So I'll go ahead and add all those 12 tags. And initially, we land on a status board with the first 5 tags in that search, which gives us the current value, the trend of that tag, as well as a snapshot of that tag via the current time range. Over on the left-hand side is metadata associated to that tag. And we can edit this search by clicking on the tag icon and clicking Edit. And so we'll select the tags that we don't like or don't want to include in our search. So we'll go ahead and remove half of these tags, which include the agitator tag, both my inlet 2 tags, and my outlet tags, and lastly, the pump 2 tag. We'll remove them by clicking the button Remove and show the trend pens of the existing tags by selecting them. Now, if I click the drop-down arrow, I see more information about that tag, including metadata, as well as any alerts. I'll change the time range to an hour, and immediately the snapshot gets changed to accommodate that hourly time range. I can share via a link or an email once I save with Team Access. I can embed this into an external URL, like a public web page, or even download as a CSV file or to Excel online. But for now, we'll go ahead and save directly to AVEVA Insight, and we'll give it a content name called Mixer Status Board, and have the option to either save the latest data, so the latest hour, or fixed dates. We'll leave it at latest data, or latest data. Keywords will enable for Mixer, and we'll save it to only me. And the section below that gives us an area model. And this area model was brought in directly from System Platform, from which this data source is brought in from. And so if you're a System Platform user, it'll bring in your existing plant model and generate this asset area hierarchy tree. So we'll go ahead and designate this piece of content for Mixer 100. And we'll enable a shareable link for future use. We can share that at a later date and click Save. So from here, we'll go ahead and easily change our content by clicking on the gallery icon and choosing line chart, which will transform our data from a status board to a line chart. So now I can use my mouse by left-clicking and dragging, and using my mouse wheel to scroll in and out to adjust the x-axis time range. And there's also a navigational toolbar on the x-axis as well. On the y-axis, I can hover over and select the y-axis and change it to a single axis. Up in the top right, we can add a comment by selecting the comment icon and clicking anywhere on the graph, and choosing the tag I want to select, in this case level, and entering the test comment. And I'll make it available to my entire team. So I'll save, and I can view this comment at any given date by clicking on it, seeing the data associated with it, as well as edit or even remove that comment altogether. So I'll go ahead and go into the settings and add a limit line. And this is just a visual marker to better visualize the chart. In this case, I'll set the limit value to 100 and indicate that limit marker as the mixer level is full. I'll go ahead and switch back to a stacked axes and add an alert. Now with an alert, I'll click anywhere on the graph, and a multi-condition alert dialog box appears where I can define alert for all or any of the conditions being met, as well as I can delete any tags that I don't want to be included in this alert. So I'll delete them all except for level and temperature. For level, I'll choose the condition to be greater than 95. And for temperature, I'll choose the condition to be is between 115 and 120. And I'll go ahead and click Next. From there, I have the ability to send a push notification via the mobile app or to an email address to either myself or anybody else that's a part of my solution. If I click on the drop-down arrow, I can add a deadbound time period, an action description, as well as change when the condition is activates this alert from true to only changes to true. I'll scroll down and click Next. And I have the ability to acknowledge that I want alerts sent to my email address. But for now, since I don't want to flood my email address, I'll just say no thanks. I'll click Next and define my alert. I'll give it an alert name. I'll link the alert to a given asset. In this case, I'm going to keep the theme at Mixer 100 and give an alert description. In this case, we'll give the alert description to be check mixer levels, and it's full. And then you have a summary at the bottom, and I'll click Finish. So with that being said, we can then go ahead and still continue to drag and move our mouse and change the time range. And we can see this alert that we just created using the alarm bell. And we can edit, change, and manage that alert as needed. We'll go ahead and save this piece of content as Mixer line chart, and keeping the same keyword and asset settings, and clicking save. So from here, we'll go ahead and edit the custom time range from to be about 15, 16 minutes and click apply. I'm gonna go ahead and click the gallery icon, and change it from a line chart to a column chart. And one of the new features is a slice by feature. So instead of slicing per a unit of time, I can slice by either an event, which counts as a discrete or string variable. In this case, we'll use our pump1 tag as our slice by tag. So I can slice by average, min, max, last, total, or even meter data. I can then drill into one of these column charts and view it in a trend pen along that given time range via that slice by. So I'll go back to my column chart and I'll go ahead and save to AVEVA Insight, and I'll name this Mixer Column Chart Slice By. I'll keep the same keywords and asset definitions and click save. So from here, we'll transform the time range to 1 hour and switch from the gallery view from column chart to detail grid. And from a detail grid allows me to show the data per unit time, in this case, 15 minutes. And it shows the average, min, max, last, total for analog tags in my current search. So I'll go ahead and save and rename this to detailed grid, Mixer Detailed Grid. Again, keeping the common theme of keeping the same keyword and asset information. So now that we have a few pieces of content, we can go back to the home page and easily create a dashboard. So we'll go ahead and click AVEVA Insight. And in the search menu, we'll see, so also something to note is that the previously saved content is in our suggested content tab, as well as any user action that was just done, like making a comment, shows up in our newsfeed. We'll go ahead and create a dashboard by, in the search bar, selecting Mixer. Keywords include Mixer, and choosing the Mixer keyword, automatically generating a dashboard with those 4 pieces of content. We can edit this dashboard to rearrange and resize the content to fit how we would like to view it upon landing on this dashboard. So we'll expand the detail grid and the line chart to make them more visible, and we'll expand the status board just a little bit. So we'll go ahead and save by clicking the check mark, and we'll leave it at Mixer Dashboard, save it to my entire team, and enable a shareable link so I can share this dashboard with users outside of my AVEVA Insight solution. So we'll go ahead back to the home page, and notice in the Dashboard tab, our previously saved dashboard is available. When I land on it, it's pre-configured to how I'd like to see it. So if we drill into the line chart, we can then transform data into one of our new AVEVA Insight tools called Process Graphics. So we'll go create a graphic and open up the graphic composer. And from here, we'll go ahead and bring in a background image. This background image is going to be Mixer. It's a stock Mixer image, and we'll resize the canvas to 18 for width and a height of 12. And the pixels is underneath width in terms of the canvas range. We'll stretch the picture to fit the canvas, and we'll go ahead and add background content cards. So we'll drag over our color. We'll go ahead and resize and format it. And clicking the edit button, we can then adjust the shade to make the color maybe a little lighter, and adjust the transparency. We'll choose 50% transparent. And if you wish, you can format it using the order tools as well. We'll leave it as is. Now notice, as I drag over new colors, the same settings that we previously saved for the last piece of content card get transferred over to the new content cards. So I'll drag in 2 more colors and rearrange them and align them as so. And now I can bring in tags and start creating my process graphics. So I'll start with the inlet tag, and I'll modify this tag to include not only the tag name value, but also a color indicator selecting the one as I just did. I'll resize and give it an information of high so I can see the tag name. Give a color and change it from blue to deep purple, as well as change the text color from black to white. Now the tooltip allows, as whenever I hover over the graphic, will show me the currently selected information. Now when I bring over my other inlet 1 tag, it saves the previous settings just like with the content cards. And now with my analog tags, I'll have to reformat these because they're a different type of tag. I'll resize and choose modify. And for here, I'll choose a vertical bar and resize to accommodate. Reposition and click the edit button. So I can change the color of the bar from purple to red. And so now I'll bring in over my temperature tag. And instead of a vertical bar chart, I'll modify it to be a horizontal bar chart. And reposition and reformat on the content card. On the third content card, I'll bring in my pump 1 tag. Notice it kept the discrete settings from previously. I'll change the text to black and bring in the agitator analog tag and change this to a quarter arc. So I'll go ahead and change the color from red to green and reformat and reposition. So now that I've finished my process graphic, I have the ability to save by clicking the check mark on the top right, and I'll call this my mixer process graphic. Keeping the same keyword, and I'll make this one only available to myself, as well as the same asset information. So now going back into the home page and navigating back to my dashboard, AVEVA Insight will notify me that an additional piece of content shares the same keyword for this dashboard, which was my recently created process graphic. So I'll resize my process graphic, and adding new content to the dashboard is as easy as that. Now going back to the home page, I'll go ahead and click on the hamburger icon and click on the asset page. So the asset page is a new way of viewing data via a location area or an asset specifically. In this case, I'll drill into my system platform plant model, which contains line 1 and ultimately my mixer 100. It'll show the recently saved process graphic, as well as all the other content associated with the mixer 100. And now I can define asset information. So from here, I have a mixer 100 name, and I'll give a namespace to my Irvine plant. The keyword I'll type in as a mixer 100, and I'll give a description. It's being associated to line 1 and its mixer 100. Now, geolocation coordinates, using decimal degrees, I can pull in latitude and longitude coordinates, and these are going to be associated with the city of Irvine. And optionally, you can also add elevation decimal degrees if you so choose. Lastly, define a time zone for this asset, in this case, Pacific Standard Time, and click Save. Notice the map of the asset is shown on this asset page as well. Now we can create journal entries or even see the alerts that were configured previously for this asset. In this case, the mixer level full alert, as well as I can define alerts from this page as well. If I click on the journal entries tab, I can add a journal entry and make it associated to the specific asset. So unlike a comment where it's tied to a tag, this journal entry is tied to the given asset. So observation on asset, and the mixer level was full. Notify, we'll say notify management. Give a date and time, and click Save. And so now you can view this journal entry, at another given date. So lastly, we can integrate AVEVA Insight with third-party solutions like Power BI and using this BI gateway. And so with this BI gateway, we can link AVEVA Insight to Power BI using this Azure SQL database connector, applying the authentication tokens for the server and the database, and click OK. It'll load the data into Power BI, and we'll pick the data that we choose, which is batch data, and we'll click load. And so as it loads, it'll bring the data in, and then we can do some development within Power BI. So showing my batch data over in the field section on the right-hand side, as well as bringing that batch into a dimension query. And now we can manage relationships from the existing databases. So we can edit if we so choose, and click close. And from there, we can see the hierarchical relationship model. Now we can start beginning to use the IntelliSense feature and creating dashboard KPIs. In this case, we'll start adding characteristics, so top 10 downtime duration by reason, by equipment name, and we'll create it as a stacked bar chart. And we'll add another piece of content using our desired conditions. This one's going to be top 10 downtime by count, by reason, by equipment name, and again, as a stacked bar chart. We'll go ahead and reformat that. And we'll add one more stacked bar chart using the IntelliSense search bar. And we'll do energy by equipment name, by reason, and we'll create it as, again, as a stacked bar chart. And well, instead of we want to clean this up, we'll say, again, top 10 energy by equipment name. Looks good to us. And then we'll add a new piece of content, which will be a line chart. So we'll do energy by a measured start time, by equipment name, and as a line chart. We'll resize to format on the canvas and add a dynamic time toolbar so I can adjust the time range at which all these KPIs are generating data from. And notice as I select one tag, it isolates that variable across all the different KPIs, changing from one tag to the other, or even showing all of the tags. So with that, we can publish to Power BI and then view in our running Power BI application. And here's our recently created dashboard within Power BI using AVEVA Insight. So that's all I have for today for this Learn in 30 webinar. And any questions have come in, you can please relay them to me.
Yes, Tim, we did have a few questions come in. Our first one is, can I go back and modify a specific content card?
Yeah. So if you go back into a content card, you can open it up and make the changes that you need to make, and then resave that content card.
Perfect. And then we had a two-part question. So the first part is, can I integrate a tag that is updated once a day?
Sure. Yeah. It just will only publish data whenever whenever it receives new data. So if it's a flat line for most of the day, like a runtime hour, for example, it'll jump up when the new value gets inputted into AVEVA Insight.
Okay, perfect. And then the second part of that question is, the source is a data logger that sends all stored data once a day. The AVEVA Insight recognizes all the data of the day?
So the AVEVA Insight recognizes the data via the time or the license model that you choose. So it can be 60 seconds, 5 seconds, or a second. So it'll push data via that data rate up into AVEVA Insight.
Perfect. And then we have one more. What's the difference between AVEVA Insight Online and Insight On-Premise?
Yeah, so the on-premise version, which comes with a 2017 Historian, has some of the features of the cloud version of AVEVA Insight, but a lot of the features, such as like the news feed, the mobile app, Insight performance, the multi-condition alerts, don't and won't be included in the on-premise version of Insight.
Perfect. Thank you, Tim, and thank you to everyone who attended. If anyone would like to review any portion of this webinar, a recording will be available on YouTube and our website, california.wonderworkcalifornia, in the near future, and you'll be receiving a copy of it once it becomes available. Thank you again for attending and have a great day.
Thank you, everybody.